A damning new ProPublica report has revealed that Israel was, in fact, deliberately obstructing the flow of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. But US Secretary of State Antony Blinken ignored those assessments and ignored some of the footage that we're showing you right now, and even declared that Israel was not guilty of blocking aid, essentially providing cover for the bad behavior and actions of Israel. Now, here are the details as we know them. In late April, the US Agency for International Development, or USAID for short, sent Blinken a 17-page memo detailing how the Israeli government had essentially interfered with aid deliveries, including killing aid workers, razing agricultural structures, bombing ambulances and hospitals, sitting on supply depots, and routinely turning away trucks full of food and medicine. The memo also noted that Israel was holding onto a large supply of food, including enough flour to feed about 1.5 million Palestinians for about 5 months. As you can imagine, that flour was very much necessary, but Israel was holding on to it. Bezalel Smotrich, one of the far-right lunatics in the Israeli government, blocked the transfer of the flour in February because it was intended to go to UNRWA, a UN agency providing humanitarian aid and relief to Palestinians, which Israel has essentially made a blanket statement about, claiming that they're all terrorists, which is unfounded. Now, they weren't alone, by the way. The Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration within the State Department, meaning a portion of our own government, also determined that US humanitarian aid was being restricted by Israel. But the Bureau later backed down on that position. I wonder what kind of pressure was going on behind the scenes. And rather than listen to what top US officials had stated about Israel's conduct, Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, of course, chose instead to lie to Congress. On May 10th, Blinken delivered a carefully worded statement to Congress that said, quote, "We do not currently assess that the Israeli government is prohibiting or otherwise restricting the transport or delivery of US humanitarian assistance," end quote. Now, Stacey Gilbert, who's an official who helped write drafts of that report, resigned over its final language. In fact, she stated, "There is abundant evidence showing Israel is responsible for blocking aid. To deny this is absurd and shameful. The report and its flagrant untruths will haunt us." And in response to this story, the State Department claimed that it had successfully pressured Israelis to, stop obstructing aid into the Gaza Strip. So like, what are we all complaining about? No big deal. I mean, you just saw the videos and images of starving and dying Palestinian children, but what's the big deal? They wrote that, as we made clear in May when our report was released, the US had deep concerns during the period since October 7th about action and inaction by Israel that contributed to a lack of sustained delivery of needed humanitarian assistance. Israel subsequently took steps to facilitate increased humanitarian access and aid flow into Gaza. But ProPublica says, not really. They report that that's not really what's happening. According to an anonymous source familiar with the US Embassy in Israel, the State Department was actually displeased whenever US experts in Israel reported information that actually contradicted promises from the Israeli government that they would allow more food to flow into the Gaza Strip. That was especially true when experts reported the small number of aid trucks being allowed in. A lot of times they would not accept it because it was lower than what the Israelis said. A person familiar with the embassy operations told ProPublica. The sentiment from Washington was, we want to see the aid increasing because Israel told us it would. So we are lying on behalf of Israel, so can you guys help us out here and allow more food to go in, more aid to go into the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, so let's break this down a little bit. Israel often has, every time they have some excuse, right? So they say, for example, we restrict the flow of goods into Gaza because we're so worried that Hamas is going to sneak weapons in. So except for the flour that could have fed everyone, that clearly is not a weapon, doesn't have weapons, and they wouldn't allow it in anyway. So that's your tell. And then flour is not alone. There's just tons of other food products they don't allow in. Why? Because they are purposely starving the Palestinians. And by the way, they're back to starving them now. They're restricting aid again. The settlers are restricting it. The military is restricting it. and medicine too. Okay, so now normal people might say, well, if you're going to take historical perspective, people who would starve a whole population are, I don't know, doing a genocide, or they're fascist, or they're terrorists, etc. But no, Israel and America say no, they are the moral army. What moral people do is starve 2.5 million people after they destroyed all of their homes, their sanitation, polio started, all sorts of other diseases have started, and they've absolutely obliterated the place. That's what the good guys, moral army would do, and they say it with a straight face. So Antony Blinken now, I mean, look, there's different layers of lies, and he's used up every layer there is. First, it was just doing cover for Israel, then it was wordplay, and now, our own government says that they're starving these people and causing a humanitarian crisis. I'm just gonna change those words to, they are not doing that. I'm just gonna lie on behalf of my boss. Wait, I thought your boss was the American government. So now, when you say, why is Antony Blinken serving Israel instead of America? People will say, okay, there's a couple of possibilities. One side, the people defending Blinken will be because America must serve Israel because they're a special ally, and all special allies, there are no other special allies, by the way. Every special ally, you have to lie on their behalf, you have to let them starve people, you have to send them a $26 billion thank you note for slaughtering 25,000 women and children. So that's one camp as to why Blinken is lying on behalf of Israel, because that's what moral people would do. We would support this one special ally. Now there's the terrible people on the other side who say, he's just serving his own ethnicity, and he wants to help Israel kill all those Palestinians because of his background. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that's the answer. There's tons of like that, that's crazy talk. Everybody comes from different backgrounds and have different motivations, etc. right? I think the answer is a common sense one, but that the media and the politicians still find outrageous. I think he is serving his boss, Joe Biden. And Joe Biden has gotten over $11 million from AIPAC and is corrupt.
I think it goes deeper than that, Cenk. One of the issues I had with Biden appointing Blinken as his Secretary of State was the fact that Antony Blinken founded a think tank that took all sorts of dark money and had all sorts of clients that they didn't have to disclose because of the way that think tank was structured. So they could very well have foreign clients. And look,
and not only that, Anna, defense contractors.
And defense contractors, exactly right, Cenk, exactly right. And so Antony Blinken isn't thinking about his current career. He's thinking about, what am I doing when the Biden administration is over? And he's gonna go back to his think tank. He's gonna go back to his clients. He's thinking about his own pockets. That's the way our government unfortunately currently works because of the legalized bribery, yes, but also the revolving door. Right?
100%. So don't get into conspiracy theories. The answer is right in front of you, right? So both Biden and Blinken got millions and millions and millions of dollars, not just from pro-Israeli forces, but defense contractors. They literally make money by lying on behalf of Israel. So, I mean, the people on TV and New York Times, et cetera, will say, no, politicians are not affected by $11 million. And no, Antony Blinken and almost everyone else in Washington is not affected by the millions they make from defense contractors, drug companies, et cetera, et cetera. That they just happen to think these things. And remember, they're angels. They would never do anything wrong. They have the purest of intent. They just happen to make millions of dollars from supporting Israel and giant wars. And then they'll say, but we are really trying to prevent this war. Says the same liar who lied about that report.
Exactly right.